Welcome to Film Strip. These podcasts are spoiler-filled as we discuss the plots, characters, and themes of the films in review. All content used or discussed in these podcast episodes is the property of the respective owners and used under the Fair Use Act, Section 504(c)(2), Title 17.
Welcome to Film Strip. I'm Jay, and happy to welcome back to the podcast Anthony from Tis the Podcast.
Jay, how's it going? Always happy to be here.
Oh, so glad to have you here because we've had a lot of offline discussions about this, my friend. And it's time to turn on the mics and talk about Scream 6, starring Melissa Barrera, Jenna Ortega, Jasmine Savoy Brown, Mason Gooding, Jack Champion, Liana Liberato, Hayden Panettiere, Delmert Mulroney, and Courtney Cox. Directed by Radio Silence, released in 2023 at a $35 million budget. Grossed over $169 million at the box office. Should have gotten another sequel. We're not going to talk about why that didn't happen, but shame on everybody that let that fall through.
I believe this is the highest grossing one in the franchise.
Got to adjust for inflation, all that kind of stuff. But you're not wrong. It made a lot of money. So they go back to the trope of Scream 3 that got us out of Woodsboro. We went to Hollywood. Now that's still California, so Woodsboro not that far away. Maybe Orange County. Did we ever decide where Woodsboro is from? Maybe it's Northern California, but they're going to your neck of the woods, the Big Apple. And when I saw the advertisements for this, I was like, well, all you got to do is beat Jason Takes Manhattan. It's not a high bar, even though I think that movie's fun. It's not good, and I liked Scream 5. As people can go back and listen, you and I and our friend Corey McCullough, Gory Corey reviewed that, and I thought, I'm a big fan of Scream 4. I thought, man, they should have picked up a lot of stuff there, but they didn't, so whatever. But to do what they did with that, to sort of set the rules of the requel, that we didn't know what that, we didn't have a word for that until this. I'm like, okay, I'm down, and I particularly liked our new cast. I love Melissa Barrera. I liked Vita. I liked her on that. I thought she's great. I hadn't seen a lot of Jenna Ortega stuff until after Scream 5, but I started paying attention to her, and I've watched her. I'm like, she's going to be a massive star. So yes. And I put her second build. She's like fifth in this movie. They had no idea what they had.
For real.
And now, and Jasmine Savoy Brown, Mason Gooding are coming up. They're starting to do a lot of things. You bring back Hayden Panettiere, who I always find is a good presence. And then you stunt cast with Dermot Mulroney, who obviously is going to be one of the killers because you don't put somebody like that in this. And for whatever reason, you bring back Courtney Cox. We'll get into that. But I went into this with mild expectations, just thinking, well, it just at least be entertaining. That last one was super entertaining. Jack Quaid's funny. I liked it, right? And I mean, you can go read it on my letterbox. I did not enjoy this. I think I texted you when I walked out of it. And I was like, they finally did it. They made something worse than Scream 3.
So I loved Scream 5. Go back to the review and listen. I've loved all the Scream movies to one extent or another. I'm even a Scream 3 apologist. I was very excited for this movie. Like you, I love the new cast. I was a little wary of Neve Campbell not coming back, especially since they just offed Dewey in the last one. I was like, oh, two of the legacy cast aren't coming back. How's this going to work? But I walked out of Scream 3. Well, when I first saw the trailer, I was like, heck yes, New York City. My neck of the woods. They've got to have a Times Square kill where all the characters are around Times Square and there's just a bunch of ghost faces and one of them's a real ghost face that kills somebody. But that didn't happen. But nevertheless, I was very excited for this movie. And I walked out with admittedly rose-colored glasses saying this is my second favorite installment in the franchise after the original. Now, that said, recently, earlier this year, February maybe? I don't know, maybe in March, right before Easter, I rewatched the entire 6 films. It definitely went down a little bit in my rankings. I believe I rank it now 4th place, so bottom half. But I still really like it. I like more in it than I do not like, although there are some massive problems which we can get into. I think the biggest issue I have is that we won't see how this trilogy and Sam and Tara's story plays out, but we can talk about that at the end of this episode.
Yeah, I, I mean, I'll tell you just from the front end, like I thought they had a great setup idea here. The trope of the horror movie thing is that why do these people stay in the same town? I understand it's expensive to move, but when you're a young person, you don't own anything worth 20 cents anyway. So get the hell out of Dodge. You're working
Nowadays,
at a freaking
people.
bowling alley.
I was about to say, nowadays, people our age don't own anything worth the time anymore.
But I'm talking about these 20 somethings, man. They ain't got shit. So like, she was working at a bowling alley, dude. Like, you could do that somewhere else. Like, and they'd play off a line like, you're having to work 2 jobs just to pay rent. I'm like, she's living in California. What was she doing there? It ain't no cheaper. So at least in New York, there's jobs,
Right.
all over the place. So, and somebody who will work and make some money. So I'm like, okay, I actually liked that idea. I'm like, yeah, get the hell out of town. Like, this is the thing I loved about H2O is that they said, Laurie Strode said, after 2 nights of that, hell no, I'm gone. So I'm gonna get way out of this. And so I love that idea of like, no, we're getting out and we're going to a place where you can 1000% hide in real time. You know this, Anthony. You've lived there your whole life, and I've been enough. New York's my favorite big city in the world, and I love it. It's part of what I love about Charlotte is it's got a lot of that to it, but not exactly. But it's some of that same. You can just go downtown and just disappear,
Right.
in a sea of people, and I love that idea. But it also plays with this idea, and I like the idea of, you know what? But in the internet age, nobody's hiding nowhere because everybody's, quote, famous for something. They're going to find you wherever you go in the internet age. And I felt like Halloween Ends just did a lousy job of trying to talk about that in sort of a meta context. Whereas this movie, I felt like nailed it a lot better, mostly because we're not talking about a 60-year-old woman. We're talking about a 20-something-year-old, person, which would be more akin to cyberbullying, I think. So I liked those ideas, and I like Radio Silence, their work. And the thing in the trailer that sold me, and it's the scene in the movie that I think is the scene of the movie, is the subway situation where
Agreed.
you've got the sea of Halloween masks and stuff on there, and you've got Ghostface. And I'm like, man, people about to get cut the hell up. This is what I want in a Scream movie. And so I went into it going, okay, I'm here for that. And I got those things, but I also got a lot of stuff that I felt like, man, we're just playing hits nobody's asking for anymore, and with people that I'm not interested in. And it's like trying to watch Kiss in concert nowadays, if you could. It's like, it's the songs, but it's not the same show.
Can I, right off the bat, go into my biggest problem with this movie, if I may? And well, it's jumping toward the end. And I honestly think it's probably one of the biggest problems of Scream 3. Scream 3 has a lot of problems, but probably my biggest problem with Scream 3 as well. Scream works best when there's a history between our main characters and the eventual Ghostface villain.
Yes.
And so because that reveal is supposed to feel like an actual betrayal, like to the character and to the audience.
Yeah.
And not only were the 3 villains here completely predictable from the beginning, but 2 of them were in the movie for 5 minutes apiece before the end. Like, you did not get a sense of their relationship with anybody.
No.
And that was a huge problem for me. Like, there was just no sense of betrayal at the end at all. And that was a huge swing and a miss.
Yeah. Look, I'm just going to do the shortest plot summary ever right now. Okay. The Carpenter sisters say, let's get the hell out of Woodsboro after all that. And they go to New York City. However, a new Ghostface emerges, starts targeting them and their friends. And the initial attacks involve a professor and a wannabe killer who is trying to continue the work of Richie and Amber, and particularly Richie, who was making a movie or whatever. But this Ghostface that takes them out, who doesn't give a damn about movies at all and is just out for pure revenge, because we'll find out that killer is the detective played by Dermot Mulroney, who is Richie's dad. He's also got a daughter who's what's the phrase she uses? Sex positive roommate of one of the sisters, and is in the friend group. She's turned one of the killers, and of course, one of the random college roommates is their other long lost brother, who's the other killer. All that machinates out in a very strange fashion, where we bring in Hayden Panettiere's character Kirby, who's now an FBI agent. But Gail Weathers thinks she might be the killer too, but that's just all a bunch of red herring bullshit because Courtney Cox shouldn't be in this movie. And she gets killed, but then again, she doesn't because we never going to kill off Courtney Cox in any way possible. Hayden Panettiere, though, does give a great performance. And they find this layer of the Ghostface killer that's got all this like police evidence through 20 years of murder. And I realize the cops are, supposedly hurting for funding, but I don't know if they're hurting this bad. But anyway, all this is revealed to just be an extension of the father trying to relive Richie's dream or nightmare or some nonsense. But Sam, of course, uses her father's old Ghostface costume and maybe his Force Ghost, I don't know, to absolutely stab the living shit out of the dude and kill him. After we think he's totally murderalized the two twins, who somehow also both live the subway attack and the worst stabbing in history, because rewrites are shitty in a movie like this. But in the end, Sam throws the ghost face mask on the ground, and her sister walk off to never be continued. And that's really the best way I can talk about this movie, is just get to the point.
Okay, there is a lot there that I want to cover. So, let's get into this.
Let's start with Sam and Sarah, as I'll call them, the Carpenter sisters, relocating to New York. All right, I like that idea. I think it's good. Mindy and Chad going with them, sure. Why not? Why not get the hell out of Dodge too?
I get it. It's the same as Randy going to college with Cindy in Scream 2. In Scream 5 was a remake of Scream. This is a lesser remake of Scream 2.
It is. You know what? You're absolutely right. And the setup relies on the same idea that our characters have to do the dumbest thing possible at the perfect moment for all of it to work out. That's my problem with Scream 2. Even though I think that movie's pretty good.
That movie is good.
It's good, but it's a horror trope. You have to have characters willing to do the dumbest thing at the perfect moment for all of it to actually happen, or else none of it will work. So I'm okay with this idea, though, right? This idea of they're going to go to New York, they're going to redo, and even backing up, the opening kill is in a bar with Samara Weaving in a dress on a date.
The dumbest character in all 6 movies is Samara Weaving, a film history professor, specifically teaching a class on slashers and horror movies, gets lured outside.
Yeah, can I get in on that for just a second? I've worked in higher ed for 25 years. That is not the kind of faculty that's getting funded anymore, Anthony. She needed to be like a cybersecurity professor or something. Like, that's I'm sorry, the humanities are not. It's got to be tied to like ethics and AI. If she's getting anything, nobody's taking classes in that anymore, man. Like, Gen Z has wised up to like the useless major, which there's no such a thing, but you know what I mean. They ain't doing that no more, dude. They're not doing that. They want to learn actual competency and skills and get a job.
For all the problems with this movie, the beginning may be the biggest eye roll for me. When she goes outside and he's like, I'm in an alleyway across from the bar. And she's literally can see down the alley and is waving like, can you see me?
I'm sorry. I haven't been in New York in a while, but are there any alleys in Manhattan? I don't think there are. There's no room for any of that shit.
there are, but not there in the city she's supposed to be in, like a nice area.
Right. That's not like I had a hard time with the geography of this because I feel like it's just everywhere. Yeah,
it was Montreal.
Well, also true. Also, very Jason Takes Manhattan of them. So, hey, Montreal gets a lot of work. So good to see Montreal still getting cast. But this whole opening, though, not only is she doing the dumb thing, the killer, Jason, and his accomplice, right, are they're pissed because they didn't get a good grade on a paper from this woman, and they're trying to carry on the legacy of the Ghostface to the point that they're so obsessed they now have crossed the Rubicon, right? And they have to see what it's really like, And I mean, shout out to the We Hate Movies boys for getting their poster in the apartment. Good on y'all. but well,
once his professor dies and we see it from their point of view, I actually like the opening.
It's okay, but the best part about it is, and what we know now is the Dermot Mulroney character coming in there going, who gives a fuck about movies?
Who gives a fuck about the movies?
It's the best line in the whole thing because, and having now watched this 3 times, the once in the theater and the twice I've seen it since, because I gave it another shot when it came to home streaming and was like, still no. And then I, did this for you. I thought, okay, if I'm going to watch this movie and understand it all, I have to put myself in that character's point of view. Is that I don't care about any of this crap my kid's into, and I sure as hell don't care about this series. I'm just here for plain old fashioned revenge. And on that level, it kind of works. On the other level, though, it does operate from the point of view that all of the police, particularly the Brooklyn part of the NYPD, are the worst detectives on the planet, which is not exactly true. That's like saying Scotland Yard sucks, and they don't.
Well, how did this? I can understand a crooked cop maybe slipping a piece of evidence here and there out over the years. This guy had every piece of Ghostface evidence from decades worth of crime sprees in some theater in Manhattan.
And I'm like, I get, I mean, I get like, yeah, desperate cops will sell anything these days. So I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, even so, like, where are you getting that? Because I know, like, detectives make a pretty good living, but it ain't cheap to live where you live. And you got two kids in college. So, what's going on here? I don't know. And they don't bother to tell that. They don't need to. I don't need all that minute detail. But if the reason is we're going to give you a fake out for the first kill, which is a bold choice, because usually the first kill is like supposed to be impactful, right? And in the grand scheme, it really matters not that any of that happened with the professor and Jason. Like, it doesn't really matter. They don't talk about it anymore.
Well, I mean, and that happens a few times here, like with Sam's therapist, who
Poor Henry Czerny.
By the way, worst therapist ever. Yes, he finally gets her to open up about what the trauma she's been through, and he's so freaked out. He's like, I can't see you anymore. You have to leave.
No. At that point, he's like, we're booking extra sessions. We're doing all the things. Like, no, she needed Jude Law's character from Side Effects, who could really do breakthroughs at that point. But no, I mean, it's why I said what I said about that. The idea of like, for this to work, all the characters, especially the ones who get killed, have to do the absolute dumbest thing possible to get themselves in position to be killed. It's like they have to be on non-playable character mode in GTA 5 and walk around the corner at the exact scripted moment for you to shoot them. And the only reason you know it is because you played the game for 10 years, you know? And that's what disappoints me about this is the setup is a cool idea. Get the hell out of town. Let's have some fun, you know, and go to a different place. But why is any of this still happening to these people? Like, the connection is tenuous at best.
I mean, it's a Mrs. Loomis problem, right? We didn't know Mrs. Loomis existed in Scream 2, and they do the same exact thing here, except worse, because at least Laurie Metcalf gave a good performance.
Oh, yeah, and Timothy Olyphant is eating the scenery in there, like it's Mickey. Like,
whereas awesome. Dermot Mulroney was doing a poor man's impression of both of them. He tried to do the crazy thing, and it's not bad. No, like, it should have been played differently in general. Mrs. Loomis went totally crazy. You should have done the cold, calculated, in control. But oh yeah, he took me out of it.
No, but the other thing again too is that you've got this whole Sam versus the internet thing. You know, the online conspiracies that no, she killed all those people and pinned it on them or whatever. And I'm like,
I really like that.
That sounds like some shit that would happen. So I was gonna say, yeah.
Especially because, like, nowadays, like, you don't have to have any evidence against a person to completely ruin their reputation. I wish they leaned more into that aspect, because I found that really interesting.
Okay, you just hit on something I was going to say. Go with that, and let's run with that. And instead of Ghostface being this, again, wildly connected, we don't know family members from anybody, and we didn't really know who Richie was to begin with. By the way, poor Amber, just totally written out of this, like Stu, just gone to the wind. You know, didn't even get a damn TV dropped on her face. But you know, she's out of this thing. Without doing that, why not make Ghostface the fucking internet bullies? Like, and this can come from anywhere. Ghostface goes online. You know, I mean, really, like that to me. I know we it's a slasher movie. We got to kill a lot of people. I'm here for that. Yes. But the idea of ruining somebody online, that's twice as scary as somebody chasing me with a damn knife.
You just hit on something that I want to say too. It's a slasher movie. You got to kill a lot of people, but they don't.
No,
there are no stakes here because everyone they killed is such an ancillary non-entity the professor, the therapist, a shop full, a bodega full of strangers.
The random boyfriend, the girlfriend.
Yeah. That's it.
There's
none of our main cast.
Yeah.
Courtney Cox.
That's what I'm saying is
she didn't need to be in this
Scream
movie.
2 got was the body. Randy told us.
Yeah.
No. But the thing Scream 2 got right was that everybody that got killed, they upped the body count, but they were all connected in some way. Even if it was like somebody was recreating, through the miracle of random selection of getting the names all right, all the initials and stuff like that. Like that, there's some calculation to that. This is just like, let's kill off a random person so we can have some slaughter on the screen because we need to kill every 20 minutes. But you don't care about these people and it doesn't really matter. They're not going to die in a cool way. We're just going to scare you with this like ladder trick and all that shit.
And that's the thing. Gail should have been the Randy of this movie and died. She should have been the big impactful death, especially because her scene, that would have been the perfect way to go out fighting. Like it was a great fight scene between the two of them. And even the end where you think she has the upper hand, that he picks up the broken glass and like slits her throat or whatever. I was like, that's awesome. That's a cool way for her to go.
Let me fix this whole thing for you. Just take out that whole professor nonsense in the beginning. Kill Gail Weathers in the opening scene. Kill her. I mean, you talk about setting the stakes, and now it's the gloves are really off. At that point, because Sydney's gone. Dewey's dead. That would have really raised it up, and it would have been something for the characters in this movie to react to because they knew Gail. They had a relationship with Gail.
And it would have made sense for our main killers because she had a hand in Richie's death, if that's where you're going.
Yeah, even you keep all of that the same, kill her, and then you also give the internet mob another reason to come after Sam, because you and I both know internet mobs are real fickle. You are enemy number one for a day, and then all of a sudden somebody calls Caitlin Clark a bad word, and they're the enemy. And then no, it ain't about that no more. It's about who LeBron's coach could be, or whatever. It's some other controversy every 24 hours, right? But I would have loved to see that because that's a true way the internet bully works, right? Is that and then they'll come back to somebody if they got a whipping post, they'll come back to it. It's like, oh yeah, I remember you killed those people out in California. Now you killed Gail Weathers. Like what? That would have been a great entry into all of this together instead of rando professor that we're just putting in there because she was in our other movie and horror fans will pop for it. It's like the way Tony Khan books AEW. It's just stupid.
Especially because they totally destroyed all of Gail's character development. And granted, her character development has grown and, receded over the course of this whole franchise.
As it's convenient to whatever plot's being told. Yeah.
But I liked the end of 5 where she's like, I'm not writing about this killer. I'm writing about Dewey and a good man, a good sheriff of this town.
And then she does it.
And then she doesn't.
She sells out because nobody wanted to read about Dewey.
Come on, you've got to admit, I loved her ducking Sam's punch and saying, I've lived through this before. Then Tara comes out.
But Tara's the one that needs to get it because these people know Jenna Ortega is going to be the real megastar to come out of this stuff. And we got to give her lots to do or else she will never come, which as we know now, she will never come back. But even at that point, you're like, we got to keep getting her back because she's the biggest thing in this movie and we buried her on the cast list, because she just got written into it. So, I mean, and that's a smart thing to do. Again, I don't dislike this movie from the beginning. The beginning is kind of dumb, but I like the idea of like, oh, we don't care about movies anymore. Okay, cool. Even though you actually do, because that's the whole premise of why this is happening, but whatever. But I'm going with the idea here, and I'm going with the setting and stuff. It's when it starts to, I don't know, unroll itself a little bit, and we get the therapist and his random kill, and then we get, Gail.
Which, by the way, his kill was 2 seconds. They didn't even take time. It was like, oh, we need a body. So he just stabs him through the mail slot.
Yeah. And I mean, like, with the dump, and like, also, no therapist, even if they work from their home office, they got people to do that for them, man. Like, they ain't answering the door. Like, those people, so many problems with that. A wasted actor, too, by the way, in Henry Czerny, whom I love in so many things, but just completely mailed that day of working. I hope he got paid good for it. I will say, though, the fact that we do get Hayden Panettiere to come back. I was excited for this because I loved the Kirby character. I thought she was Randy 2.0. She was great. And the fact that she got killed by damn Culkin brother pissed me off on a real, the personal level. But the fact she lived, I'm cool with that. What I'm not cool with is that she sounds like she's smoking a pack of Marlboro Reds a day. I don't know what the hell voice she's doing, man, but that is not how she sounds. That's not how that person talks. And why Kirby did not sound that way before, why Kirby has this rasp and it's just Aunt Martha in this whole fucking movie, I do not get, dude. Like, it's, and she's a good red herring because you don't trust authority in these movies, right? But
follow me down the rabbit hole here.
Please help me understand this. Yes.
In terms of that voice, perhaps it was an acting choice on her part because, for example, David Arquette did the whole limp. And that was his scar from Survival. Maybe this impacted her.
Yeah, but he's a comedy character. He's supposed to do that. He's also like, they've got like a Western theme going behind him. He's like a cowboy. I mean, that was a cute thing. She's kind of weird, but keep going. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm just saying, maybe that's her choice. That's, my character was stabbed here and it ruined my vocal cords. I'm not saying it's a good choice, but I'm trying to justify what she was doing.
I think it's the fact that you cast this 5'1" actress who used to be married to a 7-foot boxer, and she learned how to act tough. Like, she's trying to be tough. She can be tough. I get it. Like, Melissa Barrera is not a big person, but she comes off as fierce. Jenna Ortega comes off as fierce. Neve Campbell can be fierce, when she wants to be. And I feel like Hayden Panettiere was the cool chick as Kirby, even though she had kind of the hot rod haircut, all that stuff, but she wasn't tough. She wasn't trying to be Captain Marvel or something. And I feel like that's what she's trying to do here. It's the wrong impetus, because what she should be is the smartest one in the room. And I will say she gets to be that, and I love that, but they don't do enough of it.
I did not buy for a second. I know they were trying to make us suspect her. I didn't buy for a second she was a killer. I didn't believe, especially because she's a fan favorite, I didn't think they would have the balls to bring her back and make her the killer. No. So, yeah.
Well, when they didn't kill Courtney Cox early on, I knew this movie was lacking of the balls and that we weren't going to do that. And so I was like, no, Kirby is not going to be the killer. But I like the fact that she's not entirely trustworthy because we don't trust the authority. That's a common theme. Fine. I'm okay with it. I do love that she gets parts to work on in the climax. They give her stuff, but it just feels like there could have been so much more there, man. It really does.
They could have, because what we were missing here was the good authority that was Dewey in all these movies. And they could have made her still made her Kirby and different from Dewey, but she could have filled that hole that Dewey left behind. And
well, she's still doing some of that too. She does have a little bit of that, but you have Mulroney coming in being Mr. Suave. I want to be Eric Roberts in a Lifetime movie killer person, undercutting all of it, going like, how can you possibly trust her? Trust me with my shifty weird eyes. Cause obviously I'm not killing anybody, even though I could have just walked in bloody clothes and you would have bought that. I think the problem I'm having with this, Anthony, is that Scream 6, and I want to say this in context, this is the 6th movie in a horror franchise. I know where we are, okay? And even if it's the second one in a new trilogy, fine. We've been down this road, though. We know the rules of the game at this point. If you're going to circumvent all that, then fine. But don't play against the tropes that those rules create, if you know what I mean. So, because what does Ghostface always do? He doesn't kill you directly. He comes after you the way Angelus did on Buffy. He's going to screw with your mind by killing everybody around you, making you watch it and then get you. So that whole attack in the apartment, right, where we supposedly kill Quinn, and we kill the boyfriend and we kill that other girl, and that's a great scene with the Sam's
with the ladder
and with the ladder. I'm like, that actually was well done. That was some good Scream shit.
That was great tension.
Yes.
Even though Tara's boyfriend was an idiot, because how long was he there banging it? Hey, like at the window, rather than just big tough guy. He could have made it across the street in 2 minutes and got up to that apartment to help them.
Exactly.
But no, the ladder stuff was really tension. I really like that a lot. And by the way, while no one of consequence really died at all in this movie, I will say Ghostface in general was pretty brutal in this movie with some of the kills. And I thought he looked better than ever. I know the plastic doesn't decay that way, but I liked the aged mask.
So the fact that they keep leaving the old masks behind, right? Let me know another thing too. We have a trio of killers here, but in no time can I tell you when any of them is not Dermot Mulroney. Like I feel like he is almost always killing people. Quinn's obviously not doing this one unless she did the boyfriend, but she's not pulling this off. And her brother, who wasn't even there, he probably could have snuck in and been a part of this.
The only one I can pinpoint not being Mulroney is Gale, because he was in the park with them. So, but exactly. I don't know who it was.
It's got to be that's got to either be the
It's got to be Quinn.
It's got to be Quinn, because I think her brother was on the subway doing the subway kill. So so it's obviously the detective the whole time, which is fine because again the kills are brutal. I have to say too, again, for the way that they're doing the knife work and all the blood and stuff here, for CGI, it's really good. Like it looks really good. There's times when you can tell like that's not really there. Like I wish it was, but there's some decent stunt stuff here. I mean, when she falls off of that ladder and her head hits the dumpster, I'm like, that's a fucking bad kill, man. Like that's harsh. That's almost getting gutted right there.
I liked that. I really did like the bodega scene where he kills all those people, and then
okay. You've just hit. I'm going to say it now. I'm going to get on my soapbox.
Oh God, here we go.
I've said this on your shows before too. Do not give the serial killer in a slasher movie a damn gun. Because
we talked about this during the Terrifier episode on your show.
Yes. As people know, I have a problem with this. And it's also the biggest clue that this is a cop. Because average, ordinary citizen, particularly in New York, and I'm not speaking ill of people, but in New York, you don't grow up around guns, all right? They don't teach you how to do it like we do down here in the South, right? And even me, I grew up around them. I don't know how to shoot a gun like that. And if you don't know how to handle a gun, it's obvious when people pick one up and they don't know what they're doing. This person obviously knew how to handle it. And I'm like, well, it's a cop. Like it's obviously got to be a cop because only a cop would know how to do all that. It's either a cop or a character out of Grand Theft Auto, because that scene, while cool, doesn't belong in a slasher movie.
I thought he looked the character of that image of Ghostface holding that gun looked awesome as he's creeping around the shelves in the bodega. I love that he just walked into this crowded bodega and these citizens of New York are, hey, watch it, pal, and he just slits his throat and just gets them all. I thought it was very cool.
Also felt like at a bodega like that, particularly owned by people who that is their whole life, they would be throwing everything they had at you, beating the shit out of you for messing up their grocery store. Like I felt like everybody laid down way too easy for that to go down that way. Like I don't know. It just, there's something about it. It just, does it look cool? Yes. It's like jumping off of a scaffold through plated glass on a bunch of chairs. It looks cool, but it's not really smart and it doesn't really tell a story. And it doesn't do anything. I would have liked it more. And I'll tell you, they could have done it. Still do the bodega chase, but have Ghostface get in there and have the owner pop up with that shotgun. And now Ghostface has got to deal with that too. Like that would have been, if you want to tell us for sure there's more than one, have the second one come up behind the owner and kill him while the other one's stalking him with the knife. Now you've made the bodega scene, because now you've revealed like, oh, there's more than one, as if you didn't already know.
And
now you see that happen. That would have been fun, because then you really send the characters' minds into, well, who are two people that want to kill us? And trying to figure that out. That would have been fun and cool. See what I mean?
I get it, but I liked it. I go back, listeners, and listen to the Terrifier episode. I don't have a problem with my slashers wielding a gun.
I can't wait to talk about Terrifier 2 someday, by the way, because another great female character entered into horrordom, by the way. I'll love that movie for that forever. But anyway, back to these two.
Speaking of female, actually, that's actually a great seg for a question I wanted to ask you. Speaking of great female characters and final girls, I know you love Melissa Barrera and Jenna Ortega. Did you miss Sydney at all?
In this story, no, because there's nowhere for her to be, and I felt like her, even in the last one, was a tenuous connection at best. Like it was because it had happened to her. Like that was really the only reason she was there. I would have been, I'm actually fine with the idea of handing it off, or was fine with it. She's coming back again, so we'll see what they do. But I was fine with the handoff because I don't know where you could have put her in this story. You know what I mean? Like the way it's built, there's no place for her. It would have been a completely different movie. So I didn't miss her because I didn't feel like there was any place for her in this. The same way I didn't feel like there's any place for Gail in this either. Gail should have been dead. So
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I did miss her, but again, she wouldn't have fit in this story. I would have been curious to see what the original story / script idea was when they still thought they could get her back.
I think it's what we're going to get with Scream 7, where it's people going after her family. And that would have been, Sam and Tara would have come into the rescue for her or something like that. But we'll see.
But this one is going to at least be written by Kevin Williamson and directed by Kevin Williamson.
Yes, which I'm remotely excited about, because anytime you get the creator back, it can be a good thing. It can also be like, yeah, you need to hand it off too sometimes, but we'll get there when we get there. For this one though,
calling it now real quick before we move on, Ghostface of Christmas Past with Stu Macher coming back to
hey, look, now if they do that, and they ought to have done that already, but yeah, I would have been okay with it. They should have done that in 5, honestly, or even 4 would have been fun. But even though I love 4 and I love Jill deserved another movie.
For all my issues with 4, Jill is still my second favorite Ghostface killer after Billy.
Because Emma Roberts is the smallest, most believable badass on the planet. That's why. So she's 5 feet tall, and she looks like she could kill you with a fork. Like she's
not to mention those 5 minutes of her harming herself to make it look like she was attacked.
Yeah. The Jim Carrey liar scene, but done in a horror movie. Yes, it's awesome. I love that movie for that, and I love her in that too. I like Emma Roberts in anything. She's just one of those people I'm going to watch her because I think she is an interesting performer who does not cash in on the fact that she is from a famous family, and she doesn't try to be any of them. She's got all the wit of her aunt, but with all the fierceness that her dad has. But, displays in some really crappy movies. But hey, he's making a living, so I'm not going to dog him for it. But she's got ferociousness. And that's what Sam and Tara have in spades here. Kirby kind of does, but it's sort of played almost like a joke.
One of the things with Sam, in particular, in her ferociousness, you saw it in 5 too, but especially here, I love the end when she puts on that Ghostface costume and calls Mulroney, and then comes out and hacks him to death like with 60 different stabs to him wearing the Ghostface mask. And I actually really like seeing the Ghostface costume as kind of the good avenging angel. Like, I would have liked to have seen 7 them lean more into that, like her leaning into that dark side, but more the avenging angel type Ghostface rather than a killer.
It's almost what happens in Halloween Kills when Michael Myers gets beat down by the mob and then puts the mask on and absolutely clears the ring of everybody.
Yep.
In that moment, you almost root for him, except it's shot so badly that you can't. And anyway, I've talked about Halloween Kills enough. But when this comes down and they do the big reveal, right, that it's Ethan and Quinn and, of course, Detective Bailey's hanging around. I really okay, we'll come back to the subway in a second, but I got to talk about the fact that Chad, man, that was a great kill. That is a great twins kill. Like this brother and sister kill him the way they do.
And then they wipe the knives in unison. Yes, that was a great shot.
I'm like, stereo blade wipes. The only thing they didn't was drop that damn Everclear song from Scream 2. That would have been perfect. Like some version of that. Because I'm like, yes, that needed to happen. I like Mason Gooden. He seems fun, He's got a lot of charisma, but he needed to die. And
that was a great kill too, because he fought back too. He put up a fight. That was awesome.
He's a fucking football player. He's a big dude, and those are 2 skinny little people, and they had to stab the hell out of him to kill him. But I liked that, except that he lived.
Except that I agree. He should have died. I think Chad in a way was partly the new Dewey, which is why he survived 5, why he survived 6, because Dewey had the magic protective shield around him. He got stabbed in every one of these movies and still lived until 5. I feel like that's what they were doing with Chad. But Dewey never got stabbed 60 times by two different Ghostface at once.
No, not like that. Not like
Yeah.
that. But the thing before, though, is that this is when they really blow their wad, because I realized this is the best scene in the movie and we've still got 20 minutes to go. And that's when I knew we were in trouble, is the subway haunt and kill, or almost kill, of Mindy. That was awesome. Like that, I was like, yes, this is how you shoot this scene, with the lights going in and out, and it's just getting a little closer. And I'm like, yes, we are fucking with the audience again. I love this. This is how you do this stuff. And then, of course, it goes down exactly like she thinks it's going to. It can't go down that way, but of course it does. And I'm like, if this movie again had any gumption to it at all, Anthony, the only people left standing at the end would have been Kirby, Sam, and Tara. Because there's got to be stakes. Like, say what you will about all those damn Halloween movies and stuff, everybody's getting killed except the main characters, man. Like, everybody's going down, and you've got to do that, or else the audience is never going to go for it.
Can I be devil's advocate here for 1 minute? In fairness to the Scream franchise, they have always left their main characters alive. Fair. Sidney, Gale, and Dewey must have a record in terms of horror franchises for making it as long as they did. Two of them are still around.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm going to completely undermine my point here. To your point, the other films built up characters you grew to love and killed them off, whereas 5 and 6 didn't really do that.
Yeah, all the people who get killed are tertiary at best. And I'm saying I agree with you 100%. The Scream franchise has always had a core group of people that just lived through it. Buffy did this. Like, how do all these 4 people keep surviving through all of this shit? It's just because that's how it goes, and you just take it for what it is. But there was always somebody that got picked off. There was a cost, and it was somebody who was built up. And in a movie that's not going to build anybody else up, if we're not going to do that, well, we got one of two choices. We kill off legacy characters. So Kirby and, Gale have got to go, or at least one of them, right? Or we really flip this thing on its head, since we've decided to do that anyway. We put it in New York. We got shotguns going on now, and all this stuff. We're going to use the Mr. Ladder and use that to kill people. Why not flip it on its head and say, nah, Mindy and Chad are going to. Like, I'm just thinking about, in terms of boldness, man, you talk about really just setting a bar. And I think it would have worked.
I mean, granted, they had no idea about all the issues that would plague them in the lead up to 7, but they may as well have killed Mindy and Chad, because you're not going to bring the two of them back now without Tara and Sam.
No,
at least I don't think they are. Yeah,
no, they're all gone from what I hear. Everybody's gone except Nev Campbell and I guess Courtney Cox. So
supposedly Patrick Dempsey.
I guess McDreamy's got nothing else to do. I mean, he just was a killer in Thanksgiving.
I was about to say he's filming Thanksgiving too as well.
You know maybe, what? As a sidebar, by the way, I am disappointed in myself that I waited as long as I did. I just saw that like a month or so ago, and that is an awesome movie. I'm so glad that got made. And
I love that movie, and if you do it for the holidays this year, I would love to come on for it.
We will talk about that, because I had such a blast with Thanksgiving. So thank you, Eli Roth, for giving us that.
I will say about McDreamy, though, I mean, I assume he's going to come back for Thanksgiving too, and if that's the case, open and kill, maybe? Is he going to just be the open and kill in 7?
I mean, it could be, and we never know. But to this movie's point, it won't play with any of those stakes. Right. But we still want to play with this thing of Sam's got killer blood in her, but Billy Loomis has become, again, it's like he's been redeemed by the Force, Anthony. He's now Anakin Skywalker, telling her how to do it right.
Look, at this point here, well, first of all, the heroification of Billy is like weird to me.
Yeah, right.
Weird to me. Like
he was the most evil person on the planet.
He was the most evil killer. Don't forget, he set off everything, killing Maureen.
Well, if you believe 3, he had Roman helping him. But either way, same diff. He was the vicious one.
He was the vicious one. Like, lean into that viciousness. That should be her dark side. He shouldn't be a Yoda type figure.
No, anyway. He should not be Yoda. In fact, what I would have loved is for Sam to go, shut the fuck up, Dad, and then just go off and stab this dude on her own anyway. Like, throw the mask down then and know, I'm doing this as Sam, not as Billy's ghost kid or what the hell ever this is.
I'll say this about Billy too, Ghost Billy too. 6 movies in, 7 movies in at this point, about to be 7 movies in. I'm still waiting for this franchise to go full on supernatural at this point.
Yeah, they haven't done it yet, except in the Stab sequels, which is one of the most brilliant things about the beginning of 4, with Amy Teagarden explaining all that, especially the one about time travel. I would pay to see that, by the way. But I love I like the fact that Sam does overkill this guy at the end, but I hate the fact that she's doing it because Yoda Billy Loomis, as we've called him now, is sort of coaching her on how to do it. What was the good thing, and they should have just done this, was when Tara's like, "Are you sure he's dead? Maybe we should make sure." And she's like, "Yo, go and kill him anyway. Like, do it again." Like, if little sister tags in too, that maybe the two of them should have tag teamed him the way that his kids tag teamed Chad. That would have actually been dark and weird. And instead of Tara going like, "Yeah, you know what, I'll take you up on that therapy bit," even though she just stabbed the virgin through the throat. You know, we have to kill the incel in a horrible way, of course, because that's what we do in these movies now.
And so I want to talk about some things I liked here, because I feel like I am being very negative, considering I really do like this movie. So I want to talk about some things I like.
I've sucked you into my well.
No. I want to talk about Kirby for a minute. Love the scene between her and Mindy discussing horror movies in the shrine. And they were completely in sync. Loved that. Loved the reference to Stu, her saying, "If you believe he's really dead, like a TV could kill you."
Wink,
Loved
wink.
that.
Yeah.
Yep. The shrine in general, as unrealistic as it is, he would have that evidence from every one of these Scream movies. I thought it was cool. I actually expected at one point in the movie, like, one or two of the ghost faces would turn around, like somebody would be in the robes up there. Surprised they didn't do that, but
can I give you a way that would have worked? And it would have meant like moving location, but somehow, some way, you had to get these two back to Woodsboro. And if they had trapped them in like the basement of the police station archives, and Bailey had just lined all that out for them, like out of the boxes and stuff, like then it's like he didn't collect it and turn it into a thing. It's, oh, I know where all this is. And being a cop from out of state, he could have had like that access, like, makes sense, right? You know, I'm investigating this from New York, you know, whatever. They don't let him have all that. And if he set it up, like, that would have been kind of cool.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I agree. Because
then you can also continue with the Kirby red herring, like, who else could have access to this but the FBI agent, you know, and all this stuff. But no, I'm with you. I liked Kirby's presence. I thought, again, I think Hayden Panettiere knows this character in spite of the Aunt Martha voice that she's doing. I like her whole presence here.
I like her recap of all the other killers too, when her and Mulrooney are staring at the board, and I thought that was very fun. Yeah,
yes, that worked, because you got to have that moment in a Scream movie. They do that in Scream too, like where we're recapping what's going. You got to catch everybody up who maybe only kind of knows what those are, and maybe watched it on their iPhone on the way to the movie theater. They didn't know what this was about, right? They watched the YouTube clip of it or the TikTok of it. So you got to catch everybody up. I liked all of that stuff. I just feel like they didn't give her enough to do in the end. They just had to kind of kick her to the side, you know, because we do have, like, it is, you know, a match with like 8 people in the ring. So there's not much else she could do at this point. Like, I'm not wishing for more people to be in the match, but I don't know. It just felt a little like they just wasted her. Like, they didn't know what else to do with her after the second act. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, it's kind of, so we talked about this, I think, when we talked about Scream 5, we kind of brought up in Scream 2 how they were going for the whole copycat thing, and then they just kind of abandoned that plot altogether. I find that was similar. I get what they were doing with the masks left behind every crime scene, but at the same time, they really didn't amount to anything.
You know, it's almost as that was left only for Sam and Tara. Wouldn't maybe know that, you know, or have any reason to, unless the detective brought it to them, which that should be a shining red light that this guy is involved in this, as if you're not already aware. I don't know. The showdowns where everybody gets their kills and stuff, I want to talk about the way that happens, because we haven't talked about Ethan at all.
Because he's such a non-entity in this movie.
Exactly. Like, and the fact that Tara, like, overkills him for shit that he says once to her, I'm like, there's no history between these people. Like, what? I mean, I know why she wants to kill him because he's the bad guy, but it's almost like, oh, there's a whole plot here that got cut out.
First of all, the guy who played Roman in 3 must love the fact this movie came out because he's no longer the worst scream killer in this
Yeah, no,
franchise.
he is finally off the
hook. But Ethan, it blows my mind. He was such a non-entity. Like, I wish they honestly killed him. They kept Quinn around because she had personality. I liked her before they killed her.
Yeah.
But this kid, it's like they didn't know what to do with him. He was just... And that put the big flashing target on his back because I was like, of course it's him.
They had to have a third person. We have to have 3 this time. We have to have 3. And, we haven't had the 3s. So let's do 3. And I'm like, you really didn't. Like, if you had the detective and the daughter, it makes sense. Like, it matches what you've done in 5. We didn't need another brother, I don't know. There's just, it's almost, again, it's because we've got to have Sam kill somebody. We got to have Tara kill somebody. And then we got to have force Sam kill somebody. I guess Billy has to kill the real killer because now Billy's a hero, like we said. So
right, yeah.
So which is, again, that's why I'm like, you only need one. You need Tara to kill Quinn because that would totally work. They were roommates. You were such a whore and throw her off the balcony or something like that. Which I'm not trying to sex shame her, but I mean, come on, that would have been funny. Like playing the comedy of these because the comedies have the fun of the kills.
Well, that's why I found it really funny that when you saw Gail was dating this big giant black guy for like 2 seconds, and then like Ghostface just throws him through her glass bookcase.
And no, like, which one of you is that? And which one of you knows that jujitsu? Because wow, or either that, or he's like Glenn Powell's character in Anything But You. He's hot girl fit, so he just looks good, but he has no cardio. So,
but besides the fact that was hilarious, Gail's non-reaction to her new boyfriend now getting killed after her ex-husband just got killed like a year ago.
Gail's life is full of so much death and betrayal at this point. It's like she's so dead inside. Like, I mean, she might as well be dead as a character.
Actually, that's something I really liked in this movie. To go back to Gail's whole apartment thing, the phone call between her and Ghostface. First phone call in the series, but I actually love the conversation where Ghostface is like, you actually would have made a good killer. Dewey was a fan favorite, and Sidney never made sense, but you always had that viciousness. You would have been good. And I was like, I love that because, yes, it's true. She would have been.
I do want to give a compliment here because I know I've been pretty negative in this movie too. Roger Jackson is bringing everything he's got to this still. He is having a good time. And he's like, you want to pay me to stand over here and do this all day, baby? Just give me that phone. I got it. Voice modulate, whatever. Make up whatever fake tech you want. I got it right here, pointing at his face. And I mean, it's still good. It's still a great killer voice.
And I'm glad you brought him up because he still, to this day, does not get the credit he deserves for making these movies successful.
Oh, it is the thing that set this franchise apart from everything else. It had the bones of Halloween in terms of suspense, the gore of Friday the 13th, but it took what Nightmare on Elm Street did with Freddy and made it still sinister. Because by the time Freddy started talking a lot, he became a stand-up comedian. And it was kind of, and it's fun.
A bad stand-up comedian.
I have fun with some of those movies, but I'm not going to tell you that makes him any sinister. The Scream Killer, the Ghostface Killer, is sinister, and that's the whole point of the voice. And you got to figure Roger is going like, how has somebody not invented an app with my voice? And how am I not getting paid for that yet?
I wonder that myself. I wondered that myself. Like, I've been Ghostface multiple times for Halloween over the years, and every time I do it, I check, is there an app yet? And nothing. I can't believe that.
Because we haven't gotten to the point in voice modulation editing that can happen in real time that fast yet. It can be pre-recorded stuff, but we're getting there. Your new iPhone will probably do it for you. It's learning everything else about you. But now watch, both of us will have ads for like fake voice apps all over our phones tonight, by the way. We're sitting here talking about this.
Yeah, in 5, not only is the technology good, but he had it built into the costume too.
Right. Well, I mean, we got to upgrade at this point now. Yeah. That Father Death costume, the people that made that in like Santa Mira or whatever, got to go like, oh God, we thought the Silver Shamrock mask or something. This is selling like gangbusters.
But the Gale conversation as well, when he says as well, besides the fact you were made a killer, he also says, I believe, you are nothing without Ghostface. What are you? You don't know what you are without Ghostface. And I just loved her being called out throughout that whole conversation. But then as well, she's been through this so many times. She's a badass. She's like, Hold on a second. Hangs up, star 69. Here's the phone and shoots through the closet. I thought that was awesome.
No, it is. And that's why, again, it would have been even more impactful if she actually frigging died in the scene. Because that's the thing. And I know Scream has this big cast. Hand the thing over to the new people and kill off some people so that there's some stakes, for goodness sakes. Like, otherwise, I'm okay if Mindy or Chad live. At this point, it would have had to have been Mindy because Chad got overkilled. Like, let's be real. Because then you give Mindy some real dark, like, stuff to mess with in the next movie, assuming there would have ever been one, right?
Yeah.
To keep pulling the rug back like that on the audience, man, it's just like,
that's why.
How many times are we going to do this, you know?
Well, it's funny because, again, I mentioned it earlier. This was clearly a remake of Scream 2, the same way Scream 5 is a remake of Scream. It's right down to the finale, the climax takes place in the theater. Which was why I'm convinced, had Scream 7 gone the way with Sam, Tara, and all of them, Mommy Dearest, who was behind it all from the beginning, would have been the killer. She would have been the Roman.
Boy, that would have been even worse. That would have been. You know what? I said, before, Scream 2 only works because everybody makes the dumbest decision possible at the right moment, except for that climax, which is awesome. That is an amazing climax and part of it is you've got 4 people on the stage. Well, really 5 when you bring in Liev Schreiber for the very end of it, who know how to like pull off this stuff, who are actually better than the material that they're in, and they all just chew it up. Like Laurie Metcalf is an unheralded actress for as many roles as she's been in and the stuff she does. She can chameleon into stuff. Timothy Olyphant, we were only beginning to learn the Clint Eastwoodness that he could be, at that point. Of course, you've got Courtney Cox and Neve Campbell, who were powerhouses at that point. And then you throw in Schreiber, who is great in that moment. And then poor Jerry O'Connell hanging by the cross. So
Neve Campbell with I think actually you brought it up off mic. You were just listening to our big bracket episode. I think Lindsay pointed it out about her in that episode. Nobody does the on the verge of tears without actually crying better than Neve Campbell in the Scream movies.
And no, it's her whole career, man. That was everything on Party of 5.
That's true.
She was always doing. Almost crying. She's the best almost crier in cinematic history. And it's a skill. I want to know, how do you do that? Because that had to be like early in her career. She pulled that shit out in the audition. And they're like, I don't care, man. She can do that all day. I mean, for real. Like I would go for that. I'm like, oh yeah, I'll let you be whatever you want to be in the thing. Because if you could, that's hard to do, And I don't know. It's just some people are ugly criers too. Like Neve Campbell's a pretty crier.
She's a gorgeous crier. I mean, she's gorgeous in general, but she's a gorgeous crier
too. Like she can make it work. Like that whole thing works. And I think that's the one thing about this that I'll also say that Tara obviously is pushing down, repressing a lot of stuff going on because she doesn't know how to handle it. And so that's actually a pretty neat arc. I'm okay with that. I don't feel like they really gave Jenna Ortega enough to do in this movie.
I liked where they were at the beginning. She moved to New York to start her life, get away from that. She didn't want what happened to her in Scream 5 to define her.
Yeah.
Whereas then Sam followed her to be her protector. And I like that tension. They just, again, didn't lean into that enough, like the sisterly tension.
Exactly. Because we got to spend all this other time on all this stuff that doesn't matter. That's
like
why.
They go back to her at the end in the theater where she's like, you have to let me go, during the fight. But they ignored it for 50 minutes in between the beginning and the end, which was frustrating. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's the way to do that that is how that story arc actually would work better if they spent more time with the tension between them about her not going to therapy and not working with it. They have that one little cute scene around the dinner table where they're kind of picking on Sam about her not boyfriend. This is before the attack happens and stuff.
And they call themselves a core for her.
Yes. And I'm like, there should have been more of that in this movie and less of all this other bullshit that doesn't matter, because then you kill these people and it really hurts. Like, because you built characters that way.
This is where I go back to something you said multiple times throughout this episode. It relies on people doing the stupidest thing in a moment for it to happen.
Yep.
The fact that not one of them answered the phone in that moment because when the guy's over there texting them, like Ghostface is in the apartment.
Right. Well, but I will to defend that only just a little bit, and I'm not in it, but this generation does not answer the freaking phone, man. Like my students,
but they answer their text.
They will answer text, but they also have gotten good at boundary setting, and they will put the phones down. They'll put them in the middle of a basket in like the table, and nobody can touch your phone. You know, I was in a student presentation once, and their deal was everybody has to put your phone on the table right now. And nobody they did what you would think the old teachers would do. And I was like, I love that Gen Z has come around and like, no, we're too damn distracted. You know, like I would have been okay with more of that. And again, I think that's the thing this movie gets right is that they've got a great young cast. They really do. These are the core four are great actors, and they could have done so much more.
Boyfriend. I even like the secret boyfriend. I thought he was fun.
Right. I mean, he's a big dumb lug, but yes, that's exactly what you need. And he's smart. Danny's smart enough to go like, don't trust me either. You know, I'm like, no, don't figure it out, babe.
Don't trust me either. Okay, I understand you don't want me to come into the theater at the end. Where in my mind, I'd be like, yes, you're right.
Actually,
thank God I don't have to freaking go in there.
Yeah.
Run off.
Green flag for Danny. Like he knows. It's like, no, I will probably get killed. You don't need more trauma. I kind of like you, so I'm gonna go over here. So,
and he got the cops. He got the cops.
He did what the cameraman in Scream 2 did.
Joel, I love that guy.
Joel's like, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna see y'all later. He comes back at the very end to help Gail out. But no, I love that. I love that about Danny. But
knowing now, this movie was made before 7 hit production issues, and they changed course again. Do you think the ending works as an ending for this story?
Yeah, I don't think there's anywhere else to go, and I'll tell you why. It's specifically because of the way she throws that mask down at the end and walks off with her sister together, like resolved to like, we're going to be better people now. Like I was okay with if we didn't ever get another one. And I knew we probably would because before production problems and all that stuff, I knew we probably would because this was going to make money. You know, it was built in to make a lot of money, and it really did. I was like, no, that's actually a really good ending for these two sisters to be able to walk out like that and go like, we're done with this. We're both together done with this. You're going to go back to therapy. I'm going to stop being too overprotective and get myself some help. And I'm also going to find a therapist that will let me talk about Yodability because I obviously need to talk about that. But I like that they were unpacking their baggage together, but also not codependent on each other to do it, if that makes sense. I was okay with it as an ending.
I think given everything, given who survived at the end, which is basically everyone, it's probably the happiest definitive ending in the whole franchise. Their friend survived, they survived, secret boyfriend survived, and they're all off in the sunset now.
I would have loved one line from Tara to Sam going, you know, I hear Nebraska has a lot of good jobs. And then they just decide to go in the middle of America and disappear. I'm like, yes. But I hear they don't have good internet either. Like that would have been a good joke.
That would have been. No, but you're right. I obviously would have liked to have seen 7. They've talked about 7, how they were going to lean more into Sam's darker side in 7 in the original plan. But it's a definitive ending. I would have loved to see the new cast continue, but I'm happy with this ending. So,
but how do you rate it overall? It's time for final thoughts and popcorn ratings. So, Anthony, what are yours for Scream 6?
So, final thoughts. I know it may not seem this way based on this conversation, but I got sucked into Jay's orbit. And let's face it, podcasting is more fun when you not nitpick, but when you complain, you know what I mean, when you talk about the flaws of something rather than just gush over something. It is what it is. I still really like this movie. Yes, it has its issues. It's like I said at the beginning, I like 1, 2, and 5 better than this. This falls into the bottom half for me with 4 and 3. But and I know we disagree on this too, but I'm just going to say it here because it's my final thoughts. I don't think there has been a bad Scream movie to date, and that includes 3, and that includes this one. So yeah, I like it. I like the New York setting. I wish they did things differently. I wish they utilized New York more. I even wish maybe you had a kill on the Staten Island ferry as a homage to Jason Takes Manhattan, where he kills all those people on the boat for like half of that movie. But it is what it is. Definitely a lot of missed opportunity here, but I like it. I'll still put it in my rotation with the rest of the franchise every year. Still one of my favorite horror movie franchises of all time. And if we never see Melissa Barrera and Jenna Ortega in a screen film again, I'm glad we got these two films. But never say never with horror. They could come back for a legacy sequel in 20 years for all we know. All that said, I am going to give this, let's see. If you follow me on Letterboxd, I gave it a 4 stars. Let's see. I'm going to give this a. If Scream 1 is an extra large popcorn with all the fixings, Scream 2 and Scream 5 are large popcorns with all the fixings. I'm just going to make this a plain large popcorn. No butter, no extra salt. This is kind of like you maybe get like the day-o popcorn, like the first thing in the morning from the night before. It's a little stale, but you still really enjoy it. That's what I'm going to give it. A large popcorn, large stale popcorn.
I want to say this too. I'm glad you enjoy this movie, Anthony, and I'm glad you let me suck you into my web of discontent. I agree too that look, I will concede it's hard to make movies. Everybody that works on them works very hard, and more power to you. But I believe very much once art is given to the people have a right to say what they want to say about it, as long as you're not being, inflammatory or bigoted or something like that. And my problems with this are strictly on the fact that it just doesn't all come together in a satisfying way. I didn't expect this to be a cinematic revelation. I wanted it to be a good time. And it starts off to be a really fun time, like that fifth one. And then somewhere in the turns and twists, it gets so wrapped up in its own knots that it can't quite pull out of all of it. And so then it's just like, it's like if you get a piece of string and you can't unwind it, and finally you just get the scissors and just cut it, and go, and you start over. And I feel like this movie's that way because it's got so many dangling threads that just will now obviously never go anywhere, but even inside of its own movie, don't go anywhere. And that's the hard thing about a serial of movies is you want them to connect each other, but they also have to stand alone in some way because people are going to come in and out of them and you're going to receive them differently every time. And looking from where it came from to where it landed at 6 for me is such a stark drop, man. It really is. And it started with the highest of highs. That first Scream movie is a classic. That is on Mount Slashmore, for me, like no doubt. It's the modern Halloween, it's the Gen X Halloween. It really is the younger Gen X Halloween, the millennial Halloween in a lot of ways. And I love that about it. And I think Scream 2, while it's got its problems, it's still a pretty darn good sequel. It's kind of like Jaws 2. It's not as good as the first one, but it's fun. It can be a good time. Setting aside the stupid things that everybody has to do to get you there. But okay, it's a horror movie. It's not Citizen Kane or Ben-Hur. Relax. Not everything has to be, Interstellar or Tenet. I love those movies, but I don't need them all to be that either. Scream 3 for me was a real come down because I felt like it just betrayed everything that was cool about the first two. And I like Scott Foley. I didn't like Roman's character.
Can I ask when the last time you watched Scream 3 was?
Oh, about 2 years ago. I went through a whole marathon of these. So, yeah.
Because I actually think it plays better in the post-Harvey Weinstein world, but that's a different discussion.
It might. And even then, I kind of knew that story, or that not even specifically about him.
Rumors,
but, yeah, but, fair enough. I'll say this, it's watchable. Scream 4, I felt like was this breath of fresh air, this shot of adrenaline. If you're going to come back to something, it was H2O done better in my opinion. Because I like H2O, but I feel like it's kind of cut a little off a little bit in some ways. It's almost a TV show more than it is a movie in some ways. I feel like Scream 4 was like, oh, this is what H2O should have been. Like, oh yeah, this is awesome. And I was like, and there's somewhere to go. Or maybe and it was one that I felt like, they don't need to sequel this. This is perfect the way it ends, even though I felt like Jill deserved one more movie. It's fun. They come back with Scream 5, and I had a good time with it. I thought, this is fun. This is Force Awakens. This is fun. I'm down for this. This is cool. And then this one starts off pretty neat with a neat premise and a neat idea, but it just falls apart. Just falls apart throughout it. And it gets to a point where I'm not having fun watching it anymore. And that, to me, is the ultimate thing about watching a movie that's a sequel or going back to a movie more than once is, do I have any fun with it? And Scream 1 and Scream 1's its own classic, right? But the Scream sequels, 2 and 4 and even 3 are pretty rewatchable. Like you can just put them on and they're go. And 4 is fun, to watch. 5 gets you in a new place, but it's fun to watch in a lot of ways. There's parts of it that drag, but it's fun to watch in a lot of ways. This one's not fun for me to go back and revisit. And it's not because I know it'll never go anywhere. I didn't think they had anywhere to go when it was done anyway, because I felt like half the characters should have been dead. They're not. That was cheap, and I felt like they gave a definitive ending when they didn't even intend to. So for me, that's the reason I put this dead last in the series. Like for me, I almost feel like the series almost lines up perfectly in order in terms of numbers for me. I would just flip 3 and 4 in positions because I go 1, 2, 4, 3, 5, and then 6. And 6 is well below because I say that because I feel like it's a movie that sets up interesting ideas on the heels of one that had good ideas and then just flatlines itself. So it's a small popcorn for me.
For the record, I go 1, 2, 5, 6, 3, 4.
Like if I was telling somebody who didn't necessarily engross themselves in horror movies or whatever, they're like, I want to watch a Scream movie. I'm like, watch the first one, watch the second one, and watch the fourth one is what I would tell everybody. And then don't watch anything else.
I know I am in the minority putting 4 so low on the Scream list. I'm looking forward to having you and Lindsay and Kendall and Matt. A bunch of people want to come on and refute me for Scream 4, the main show, when Tis the Podcast covers it this October. So I am 100% looking forward to that discussion and debate.
Don't look at it as us refuting. What we are is bringing you into the cult of Jill. And that is what you need to know. Because I think all of us share that same fascination with that Emma Roberts character. But Anthony, it as always, disagree, agree, either way, it's always a blast talking movies with you. Tell folks about Tis the Podcast, DC Unlimited, all the cool podcast stuff you got going on in the world, man.
Yeah, Tis the Podcast. I mean, you've heard me plug it on the show before. You've heard Jay, Ron, and Lindsay over at Tis the Podcast at this point. We're the podcast that keeps the Christmas spirit alive 365 days per year and the Halloween spirit alive all throughout October. And on Patreon, we do a lot of horror stuff. Me and Julie have a little spin-off show on Patreon you can access for $1 a month called Tis the Ruin Podcast, where I walk her through a scary movie she's never seen before, and she tries to guess the twists and turns along the way, which is always fun. I just walked her through 2013's Evil Dead, which should be dropping soon. And that was fun to walk her through. I have another podcast I do with my buddies, Chris Evans, Phil Walsh, called DC Unlimited. We talk James Gunn's rebooted upcoming DC universe, just news, DC movies, comics, things like that. And you'll find me on things like Film Strip and Totally Red Christmas and a bunch of other shows. So check it out. Check me out. Find it. I look forward to the inevitable invite to talk Terrifier 2 before Terrifier 3 comes out this year, hopefully.
For those that haven't figured it out yet, we reviewed Terrifier, and I just asked you to go back and listen to that episode because it's now titled that in our catalog. But Anthony was not aware we were reviewing that night, and that's all I'm going to say about it. But it's become a good joke. You can look on his social media and on the Film Strip social media this week for an inside joke with he and Lindsay had to share about that this week. But Anthony, always fun to hang out with you and any of the Tis the Pod family, because all that is linked in the show description. Do check that show out. Always a lot of fun. Of course, you can follow this show's social media at Film Strip Pod on all the places. We're available everywhere podcasts are found. Please subscribe. Tell other people about the show as well. We appreciate the support. So until next time, for Anthony from Tis the Podcast, I'm Jay. Thank you for listening to Film Strip.
Thank you for listening to Film Strip. You can find more episodes on our website, filmstrippodcast.com. The Film Strip theme music is produced and performed by Frozen Lake 121. All content used or discussed in these podcast episodes is the property of the respective owners and used under the Fair Use Act, Section 504, C2, Title 17.